Postmortem Radio. Again, I'm your host, Oz, joined by the blonde in front, Katie. How we doing tonight?
Great. How are you guys doing?
Good. Looking forward to this episode. It's a little bit different, but we've also got JK with us. How you doing, Jay?
I'm doing well. Excited. About 2.5 weeks until I go down to Mexico City for Macabre for the world premiere of No Good Deed. So I'm good.
Nice.
Congrats.
Congrats.
Thank you.
We'll have to do a little bit of a little talk about that at some point.
Sounds good.
In a future episode.
Definitely.
But we're not here for that, though, Oz. How are you?
No, we're not. And I am doing well. And I'm actually really excited about this one because we're not doing a typical review for this episode. For everybody out there, we are doing, as you can probably guess by the image, we're doing the movies that made us, the horror movies that made us, which has been pretty much a big hit on Netflix. I loved watching those. I loved watching the food, the toys that made us, all that kind of stuff. I thought it was really well done. So I think Jay kind of had this idea that, hey, maybe the listeners would be interested to know why we became such big fans of the horror genre. What was it that got us so interested and addicted, or however you want to put it, passionate, maybe a better word, about the horror genre. And so what happened to each of us that got us so twisted that we really dig this stuff so much. So that's, I think, so that's the topic of our show today. And we're going to each talk about what really gets our horror juices flowing. So we start off as gentlemen, we let Katie go first. So Katie, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So I'm going to go in chronological order with the year these movies were released. I'm not going to say what they are because honestly, my brain's a little fried. But first one I'm going to start with is, which I have a lot of things from
Katie's
it.
Always got props.
Yep,
Yes, I've always got props. Carrie. Film Carrie.
Good one.
Is a huge influence on me. Why is that? Well, let's discuss this. As a young girl, when you've got that opening scene in the shower and a teenage girl is having her period for the first time and she just gets ridiculed and pummeled with tampons from her peers, that is right there frightening enough. But then you go with the telekinesis aspect of it. I mean, Sissy Spacek's performance was nominated for an Oscar. Piper Laurie nominated for an Oscar. And that was just, that just really set the tone for a number of years for me for horror. I mean, the pig's blood, thinking she can redeem herself and actually have a happy ending, even though all of her life it's not been that great for her. And then just all goes to shit. I mean, it's all it's such an amazing character. It's such a fantastic film, and it's one of those films that, as much as Brian De Palma is well known, I always think there's some sort of, for me, this is just me, there's always an aspect of Hitchcock to his films. Honestly, with a good amount of his films, there's always this was like this, and this is like Vertigo, and this is like The Birds, and this is like this. And I think Carrie is one of those films that honestly, it put De Palma really on the map. And it also, this is him, rather than, I felt like it's actually him, rather than it's an homage. You can see the influence on other directors. So yeah, Carrie is my first one.
Good choice. All right. I actually, love that film. It's also John Travolta. I thought it was hysterical. And that, wasn't intended to be hysterical, but reading back and watching it, it ends up being hysterical.
Oh yeah, and Nancy Allen. Nancy Allen
Yep.
is one hell of a bitch.
I was going to say, you took the word right out of my mouth.
Yeah. I mean, because, in most films, it's like, oh, the blonde, all that stuff. Like, she is just a sea bag, man. Like, I consider her like a horrible villain in the film. And it's like, she started off, it could have gone another way. And if she had just shut up and quit and not done all that stuff, then, it would have been a nice prom. Everybody would have like gone home happy and alive. But no, Chris had to be a bitch. And it's thinking it's like, oh, look at Carrie, gonna make everybody laugh. Yeah, now everyone's dead. So way to go. Way to go.
And the thing about her character too is that she wasn't just a bitch to Carrie. I mean, they also showed how manipulating she was. I mean, even with John Travolta's character. I mean, she convinced him to do the whole thing with the blood and the pig. I mean, it just showed how just shitty person she was. I mean, it really.
And to everyone, the way she talked to authority figures, the way it's like it didn't matter what the rules were. She's right. Chris, that doesn't matter to her. It's like, I'm gonna go and do this, and who cares if this little nobody gets hurt? It's like, I'm the queen of the school.
And she's like, don't you know who I am kind of attitude. Yeah.
Well, and plus Piper Laurie, like, oh my God. I mean, you're all gonna laugh at so many of her lines, like your dirty pillows, they're all gonna laugh at you. I mean, so many lines that I still quote whenever it's like, oh, you want these pillows? I'm like, are they dirty? Are they your dirty pillows?
Well, and that's one thing I'll add to this, because Brian De Palma is known for the psychosis of his mother. His mother weaves into just about every single film, every single narrative that he's ever been a part of. And for me, Carrie's not my favorite of his. I'm more Phantom of the Paradise. I love that film so much, but you can't stop but be in awe of what the adaptation of Stephen King was made into. And it's like Cinderella, kind of like on drugs. I always think one of the things when I was reading the X-Men comics, I always compared the Dark Phoenix saga to Carrie, and how the transformation of that character and how the transformation of Carrie and the powers and stuff, it's just remarkable. And unfortunately, we've never had a sequel that's been any sort of successful. They've never tried to connect it like they've done with Halloween or Friday the 13th or insert 80s franchise, even Candyman with the latest re-envisioning. But it's really a film that stands on its own, and it's one of the best adaptations of King's work. And Sissy Spacek's just fantastic in it.
Oh yeah. And Amy Irving, the ending.
Yeah.
When you think that dream sequence, dream sequence, and it's like, oh yeah, no, it's one of those, one of the things I always say is like, most of the time when final girls, like when anyone survives a horror film, it's like, they're alive, but I don't think they're going to be living much after this. Like, they're going to be all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that chick's going to be messed up.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
For sure.
You wonder if it was an influence on Friday the 13th. That dream sequence.
It was. It absolutely was. Tom Savini's gone on and said that when they were trying to come up with the ending for Friday the 13th, Henry Benfordini, so what they said, we wanted to get him one more scare, and they did the music. They made the music seem like everything was going to be okay. And Savini said he had just seen Carrie and said, well, how about we have Jason just pop out of it, because if it's a dream, anything's possible. Because at that point, Jason was supposed to be dead, but it was they 100% stole that ending from Carrie. 100%. She's in the hospital, but wakes up from a dream. It's damn near shot for shot, except for it's popping out of the lake instead of a hand coming up out of the rubble or gravel or whatever you want to call it.
There you go. I love it.
Always got my props. All right, boys, who's next?
Go ahead, Oz.
Oh, you go with me? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. You go.
Okay, well, mine is there's a little bit of a story with mine. Okay. What really got me into what really got the hooks into me for horror. I was a little kid. I had just come in from trick-or-treating. I was about 9-ish, 8 or 9, 10, somewhere around that age. And I came in, and we used to have a local TV horror host called the Cool Ghoul here on the local Fox affiliate, Channel 19 here in Cincinnati. And, he would, narrate the films kind of like, Elvira does and Joe Bob does and things like that. Well, I had just come in from trick-or-treating. My mom was already in bed. So I was, sitting in the living room, going through my candy, eating probably half of it. And turned on Channel 19, and it was Halloween 2 was on. And everybody might be surprised that it wasn't the original Halloween that got me, but it was Halloween 2. So I just kind of started watching this thing, and believe it or not, Halloween 2 scared the living shit out of me. I'm sitting there watching it, had all the really creepy, dark hallways. And, when you're that age, you don't realize that that's really not feasible, that hospital is going to be that empty and that dark and all that kind of shit. So I'm watching this as a, 8 to 10-year-old kid, and it just scared the living shit out of me. And I see this Michael Myers walking around Dick Warlock's walk. It just was so creepy. And then when I realized that it was a sequel, it was a part 2, then naturally I had to go back and watch Halloween 1. So that's what really, plus, even though it was cut out on Channel 19, the hot tub scene.
Yes.
Imagine my surprise and my delight when I rented the VHS the first time. I was like, wow, there's another scene that I wasn't privy to. Miss Pamela Shoot. So that was definitely a big influence, and then it really definitely. And then the whole, the ending and the fire, and she shot his eyes out, and the whole thing. Donald Pleasance, I was like, I was hooked. I was hooked from right then and there, and I had to, go and make my mom. My mom used to bowl on Thursdays, and right next door was a video store, so I would go over there and look at movies. And even if I wasn't renting movies, I would just go over there, and they would just let me look. I would just look at the boxes,
exactly,
the box art, and I was just like, until I got to the point where, okay, Mom will let me, give me the card and let me go rent a movie, So that's kind of where what started it all for me.
Yeah, if I can jump in, because I think that's a great one. And you know what Halloween 2 did really, really well, and it was such a contrast to 1, was it kept it kind of self-contained. You're in the hospital. They used it as kind of a haunted house kind of feel to it. And it
Definitely.
Really was an opportunity to kind of expand that lore. And correct me if I'm wrong, a pretty quick turnover to get that sequel out. So,
Yeah.
They're working with what they have there, and they're very successful at it. And you know what? It could have really been the end of Michael Myers after 2, because, for those who don't know, and I'm sure everyone does, Halloween, it was never supposed to be Michael Myers. Each one was supposed to be a different story when it comes to almost an anthology in a sense. So if it would have ended with Halloween 2, I think fans would have been exceptionally happy, because they would have been glad that evil would have died that night.
Oh, no, you didn't.
I
No,
did.
you
Always,
didn't.
I always fit it in. Come on,
gotta get
that
in there
damn
somewhere.
good.
Well,
that
and-
damn good.
And to kind of piggyback off of that, for the longest time, that was the end for Michael Myers, because it was, I think, about 10 years before we got Halloween 4.
Right.
I mean, we got Season of the Witch, which was a different storyline, obviously, but it was about, I think, 84 before we got, it was supposed to be 10 years because it was supposed to be pick up the same night, but 81 to 80. So it was really only a few years, but it seemed like 10 years. But the only thing that I will say about Halloween 2 that I absolutely could not stand was that god awful wig that Jamie Lee Curtis wore. That was terrible.
No, another movie where Jamie Lee Curtis is in the hospital for the entire film. Who would have thunk it? So,
Yep.
ah,
Very true. Very true.
So,
No,
with that
I
being
just
said,
realized.
yeah.
Wait, yeah, I just realized that. So in 2, she's in the hospital, and then in Halloween Kills, she's in the hospital.
Thank
Oh,
you.
interesting. That just it takes me tick tick tick. Now I'm getting it. Wow.
Yep. But just also, I'm such a big fan of Halloween 2 that I actually dropped the cash, and I did order the Fright Rags jacket that
Nice.
that is the Haddonfield Memorial.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've got that jacket. I love it. And it's got the patch. You can put either Bud or Jimmy on it. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. Well,
How about you, Jay?
Well, so for the fans out there who don't know me, I'm a fan of the older genre films, older horror, but a lot of the stuff that's influenced me is more modern day. And the reason why is, and this is where my first one's going to jump off with, I myself have always been a horror fan, but it wasn't until I really got involved a decade ago now, covering film festivals, doing Horror Happens Radio, working with Horror Hound and such, and we'll get a little more into that later on, that I really dug deep into horror because I always enjoyed it. In fact, one of my films is one that I used to watch with my family, my mom's side of the family, and we'll get to that also a little bit later on. But I went through a really bad emotional time after my marriage ended, and at the same time, unfortunately, there was another travesty where video stores were closing. So, keep in mind, this is the 2000s now. And there was a West Coast Video here in New Jersey. And for me, being alone now, being on my own, I really needed something to put my mind into because I was not in the best of places. Nothing bad, but it just wasn't in a good place. With that being said, I went to West Coast Video and I started buying all their Asian and foreign horror.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So I have 2 entries that are both Asian based. And for anyone also who knows me, and if you look right behind there, and there, those are all Asian horror back there that I collected for 15 years now. Yeah, 12 years now. So I'm a big fan of it. I don't watch it as much as I used to because life gets in the way, among other things. But my first one comes from the Pang brothers, and it's 2004. It's Abnormal Beauty. And the reason why this one stands out more than any other is because this was kind of my gateway into wanting to watch more horror films, period. Not just Asian or foreign, but more horror films and really start to dive deep. And then later on, it was definitely a film that helped me build that bridge to what would be the Horror Happens radio show, which is now a podcast for those who don't know. Mm-hmm. And this film is really interesting because one of the things I said to both of you, and one of the things I say all the time is horror is very fluid. And over the years, it's become even more fluid because horror can be an umbrella for thrillers, for dramas, for comedies. I mean, you can just go down the line depending on your perspective of horror. And Abnormal Beauty, which came out of Hong Kong in 2004, starred Race Wong, is a story about a young girl, probably in her early 20s, is part of a divorce. Mother works, father's not in the picture in the film, and she takes up photography. And for me, the films that I considered, I wanted to find not only a reason why whether I became a journalist or went to film festivals or being a fan, so on and so forth, but also a particular scene for me. And the scene, basically, she becomes obsessed with death photography, and the film is beautiful. The idea of the dark rooms and the way that the black and reds play with each other. The idea later on that a serial killer is on the outside looking in and becomes obsessed. You can tie into multiple films that came before that, but it's always an interesting dynamic because the girl herself, Ginny, she's out shooting pictures in this town square, And basically, people are surrounded by this building, and this man literally jumps off the building, and she tracks him all the way down through her lens as he hits the ground. And then she stands over him and just takes his picture, nonstop pictures. And for me, being a photographer at the time also, it intrigued me on how the idea of a visual image can like create something in us. So, you know, with Oxy Pang, who was, you know, Oxy and Thomas Pang, but Oxy Pang, who directed this, they also did the Eye, they did Bangkok Dangerous with Nicolas Cage, for those who are American. It's really an incredible film and really kind of a forgotten film. And the film itself, for me, really opened that door to want to watch more horror, and it helped me cope through a really bad time. You know, at the same time, also, I was watching films like Old Boy and Audition and, you know, and Battle Royale, great, among others. Recycle. I mean, that's another Payne Brothers film. Recycle and just so many of them. You can see them back there. But for this film, for me, just like a lot of modern day stuff, it really fed in and really intrigued me because I love the older stuff. But for me, I feel that the newer filmmakers don't get a fair shake because they always live in the shadows of what many consider the masters of horror. You know, I mean, right. It's funny. Jordan Peele recently said, "Don't compare me to John Carpenter. That's slander." You know, because he's his own filmmaker. James Wan is another one. Ari Aster is another one, among others, who are going to be that next generation of masters of horror. But that 1% is known. The other 99% is kind of forgotten. So the Pang brothers, while they've been out for a while, this film is incredible. And it's, you know, it's subtitles. A lot of films I like are subtitles, but it's dark. It's a dark drama, thriller, and then blends in elements of horror. And it really intrigued me to want to watch more and move past just being a fan of the genre. So for me, Abnormal Beauty is my first one from 2004.
I'm gonna have to check that out because I have not seen that. So I'll definitely.
Nor have I.
I have a feeling that's going to be a theme on my side. Unfortunately,
probably.
And that's not a bad thing because folks who are watching this, all these films, I don't know what the other two lists are, but I've seen Halloween 2. I went ahead and see Carrie. In fact, I saw Carrie when I was like, God, it's as old as I am, 45 actually. My birth year is the anniversary, so it's 45 this year. But I remember coming out of my grandparents' house, which I just recently moved out of a year ago, and watching that and going out to see my dad and make sure that everything was okay after watching the pig's blood scene. So, you know, so there's all connections, but these films are meant for people to watch and enjoy. And Abnormal Beauty, you can get it, I'm pretty sure, on Amazon. It's also through Taraden Extreme Video. But it's a great film to watch if you love subtitles, but more importantly, if you love great character profiles and really tense storytelling.
Yeah, I don't tend to watch a lot of foreign. Not that I'm opposed to it.
Right.
I just find that I feel like I miss out on things when I'm reading the subtitles because it's pulling my eye away from.
Absolutely. Watch the movie 3 times then.
Yeah. Especially French horror, let me tell you.
Exactly.
Ooh.
Martyrs inside. I almost wore my martyr shirt tonight.
That's that's one of my issues is that, you know, I'm lucky if I have enough time to watch a movie once, you know. I mean,
exactly.
A lot of times I grew up, literally, and if I like a movie, I have no problems watching it 2, 3, 5 times, even more. But it's just, as you alluded to, life gets in the way, especially with, you know, kids and ball games and things like that. It's just, you know, maybe one of these days, if I ever get to the point where I'm an empty nester, I can get my life back and get, you know, be able to watch a little bit more than I'm able to watch now.
Fair enough. All right, Katie.
All right, for me, number 2, which I actually watched again for I don't know how many times, but it's on Shudder, and I watched it. It is interesting, like thinking of the films that I saw as a child. There's many things like you were saying, Jeremy. Oh, wow, there are boobs in this. I don't remember boobs at all. All this stuff is the film that made me afraid of dark water, Piranha.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. When I think back of a film that really drew me to horror, but was one of the first ones that scared the crap out of me, it is Piranha. Similar to Jeremy's story, I actually saw this on one of those like Friday Fright Night movie things and watched it, you know, people skinny dipping in the dark where you can't see the water. Nope.
Nope.
Can you do that? Nope, not really. No. Nope. And then I mean, going like I honestly don't think I've ever been on a boat with my dad. I don't think this is because of this film, but it's one of those things like we can drive or we can just not go to that island. I don't know. Because it's just the kids on the raft and then the raft, like I mean, anything that was going on. Let's get on this. The piranha's gonna eat it. Let's go to this raft. The piranha's gonna tear it apart. It's like, damn you, fish, razor teeth. And then, you know, watching it now as an adult, I was like, holy crap, John Sayles wrote this? Are you kidding me? Joe Dante directed. I mean, you've got horror legends all over the place in it. And it was only, I think this came out in 78. And it's all like already, I'm like, wow, nice job, me, that this is one that really influenced me. Cause it's like, this is a pretty iconic film. But then I look at the special effects and it's like, yeah, no, now I definitely know why it scared the shit out of me, because this still stands the test of time. I mean, these like little fish biting the flesh and the flesh just hanging off people. Still 2022, this is what you need to do, people. Like these, and I realized a few of the films that really influenced me. It's like there's so many like special effects that are just absolutely amazing. And yeah, this is one of them. Still, it has, you know, it does that thing with just like Carrie and just like with the, oh, here's the sweet music and all that stuff. It's like dun 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 dun, like, you know, no real songs, no real singing songs like they have now, just, you know, good instrumental music. And yeah, I still love it even now. I mean, just watching it before we did this, I'm like, yep, it's that all those things came back to me. So yeah, Piranha, it's my second one.
You're talking about Piranha 1978, not the Jerry O'Connell penis floating around.
Jeremy, I'm going to ask you to retract that insult that you just did.
Wow.
Do you want me to do, no, I'm talking about Piranha Double D. That's the one I'm talking about. That's the one that really influenced me as a fan.
Wow.
No, the Piranha you're talking about, I remember writing a little 2-sentence review. It's like Piranha, or what is it? Piranha Double D with Piranha Jerry O'Connell and Adam Scott. Yeah, I was like, Piranha Double D. All these people really needed a summer house, because I don't know why you would do this film other than that.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. And I mean, you know, and I've always liked Jerry O'Connell, and you know, Elizabeth Shue. It wasn't Elizabeth Shue, was it?
Yeah, it was Elizabeth Shue.
Yeah.
Leaving Las Vegas, Elizabeth Shue.
And I was like, this is really bad.
Not leaving a paycheck, Elizabeth Shue.
No.
Not leaving a paycheck.
No.
Wow. Now I'd like to make an admission.
She cashed that check quick.
I'd like to make an admission. I've never seen Piranha before.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
I haven't. I've just never watched it. Never.
You gotta watch it.
See, I'm not a fan. I'm not a real fan of the campy stuff, and for me, that's kind of campy. So I'm not
very campy.
I don't think it's all that campy.
It's pretty campy.
It's pretty campy. It's a camping trip. We got it. Okay, it's a camping trip. Yeah.
I mean, there is camp. No, there's what is it? There's hiking and there's rafting and all that. But
no.
And there is a camp.
You didn't get the joke. We were saying it's a camping trip.
That's true.
Camping trip. Thank you.
True.
Thank you. That's two. So no, I've never seen it, but one of the things I love about Joe Dante is he's got such a great sense of humor, and his heart and his sense of humor. And I'm gonna bring up a real modern one with Burying the Ex.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. There is a scene in there where the lead character, he passed away, Anton
Yelchin.
Yelchin, thank you. He's sitting there and his dead girlfriend is like, come on in, have sex with me, have sex with me. And his line back to her is, hold on a second, sweet, I have to shave my taint. That's what his line back is. And you gotta love Dante, because Dante, whether it's through the dialogue, through the performance, or through the effects, because obviously without even seeing it, you know there's gonna be funny moments where the piranha rips flesh, or the piranha rips a penis off, or something like that. He's got such a way where he can blend horror and humor. That's why Gremlins is so successful. That's a big reason why it's a successful movie.
Well,
in my opinion.
Even Howling has funny
Yes.
moments in it.
Oh
stuff.
my
And
God,
I mean,
yes.
the effects
Yeah.
on that. I mean, are you kidding me? Yeah, Dante's
Especially for
great.
that, as early in the 80s as that was. That was like state of the art kind of effects at that time. I mean, you look at them now and it's kind of like, oh, that's really bad. For the time, it's about as good as it gets. All right. Well, for my second film, we go to the 70s also. So I'm following Katie's lead. And I've got to go with Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Had a feeling that was coming somewhere in the list. Nice.
Yeah. And this one got me for probably not the reason that most people would think. I love the grittiness of it. I love there's the man, Leatherface. And it wasn't the gore and the brutality kind of part of it, as much as there was one particular scene that really just had, and still to this day, and it's the scene where the girl just about makes it out of the house, and Leatherface comes in and he gets her. She actually breathes free air, and he comes from behind and just grabs her and pulls her back into the house, and she's kicking, screaming, all this stuff, and then he just puts her up and hangs her up there on that hook.
Yep.
And when she's hanging there, and then Leatherface just like leaves her and then starts chopping up her boy. I think it was her boyfriend. It was just the one that he's starting to saw up, and she's hanging there. And number one, she's, I'm sure, in excruciating amount of physical pain. Number two, what really got me with this scene is it's such a mind screw, because I mean, she's sitting there in that pain, watching him chop up her boyfriend with a chainsaw, knowing that, I'm next, that's what's coming, and to me, that was, I don't know, that to me just left such an impression on me that I was just, even to this day, it's just, I can't fathom, being in that kind of situation. But that one's for me. That one's my next one.
Such a great home invasion film, isn't it? People don't think of it that way. It really is a home invasion
It
film.
is kids,
coming
in and where they're not supposed to be, and out in the middle of nowhere, and maybe you should really check the ingredients on whatever barbecue you're eating.
Oh, believe me.
Amen.
Yeah, I had an issue with that on too. Like anytime I eat meat from outside of someone that I know cooked it, I always kind of give it a once over to wonder who this could be. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm hungry. I'm not gonna think about it.
Right.
Well, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre also had a number of characters that were just so unlikable.
Exactly.
And it just looked so, and that's what it just looks so real. Like, I mean, they were unlikable because like they're whiny, or it really, it looked like we were, I mean, to me, it looks like I was watching a snuff film. I remember watching like, God, did they really just kill these people? And they're just putting like, my God, what is going on? And I mean, even the opening with John Larroquette and his voice and that like click, I mean, that again, films with no songs, just those little bit. It's like, way to go. You just don't need the huge soundtrack. You just need those key like,
which is in our Intro music,
Yes,
by the way.
absolutely, it is. Well done.
It's in there.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is that, at least when I was a kid, there was always that banter with the other kids that watched the similar movies. There's always that debate, like, oh, this was a true story. Texas Chainsaw, it really happened. And there was the kids that really believed it, and then there were, we're like, nah, it was just it was just a movie, or no, it really happened. It was no, this is not a documentary. This is
Ed Gein, man, influenced
it was
by Ed
based.
Gein.
Yeah, it was loosely based on, Ed Gein and Psycho, and who was also based on Ed Gein. But yeah, a lot of people, it amazed me how long people believed that it was actually a true story. And a lot of it, I think, partly was also what you mentioned, Katie, was John Larroquette. His narration of it, it makes it seem as if, it was a true story.
Yeah.
That's one thing I'll throw out when it comes to this film. And you brought up Piranha before, and the feel of the realness to it. But, Texas Chainsaw Massacre takes it in a whole different direction. There was no unions back then, folks, so they could get away with pretty much anything they wanted to do. They could push it to the umpteenth degree to get the reality of it. And there's been, all of us have heard stories from cast talking, from Tobe Hooper telling about over 100 degrees in the house, how real and terrible it looked. You got to give Gunnar Hansen credit, because he tapped into something that made perhaps Leatherface arguably the greatest of all the modern movie monsters. Is he went to an insane asylum and walked around and blended in with the people there, and that's where one of the biggest influences came for Leatherface. He is a child at heart who is following his family's orders, and that's what makes it so scary, is because in his mind, most likely, he's not doing anything wrong. He's
right.
protecting his family. And that's what makes not only a great horror film visually, and of course sound wise with that kind of that clicking noise, but also the fact that it builds a conflict in you on whether or not, who are you basing with? This is the guy who's doing trouble. He's hitting a guy in the head with a mallet. He's flickering like a mackerel on the ground.
Yeah.
Yet you don't feel sorry whatsoever for him. You're like, you know what? Well, maybe he deserved that. Maybe he did. So.
Yeah, I actually have a pin that has the doors that open like that, and it's just so amazing.
Nice.
That mallet scene, like you said, the mackerel. God, there's just so many. There's seriously all those guys, all the scenes that you, like whenever they do shots of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, those usually are the two scenes that they always like. People like. Here's an example of this. Bam, because those are some of the most traumatizing scenes. That, and then the end where she's just like cackling like a hyena. It's like, right. I got out of here. Like covered in blood with chainsaw marks on her back. And again, yeah, she's not going to be right. I don't care what the new TCM said. It's like, no, that woman's not going to be right. Like she just, yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story. Within the frame, which was the short before No Good Deed, it drew somewhat from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I did a final scene. We were doing the final scene. We had very little time to get done because it was during the pandemic, and I said to the actress Sarah, I said, listen, this is the last time we're going to be able to get this, you running from the field down the driveway. And I said, well, I mentioned Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I was going through it with her, kind of feel she just couldn't get it. So I said, listen, I want you to run. I'm gonna rolling action. I just want you to run. And she looked at me, she goes, okay. I said, rolling action. And I turned to her, I go, I'm gonna fucking kill you. I'm gonna kill you. And I chased her all the way down that driveway. And the reason why is because I thought a lot about what that final scene in Texas Chainsaw Massacre was, because he is on her like white on rice. It is scary how close he's getting to her, and she just barely escapes. And the actress wasn't too happy afterwards. Everything is good. We're good with each other. The scene looked great because we did a fade out. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think one of us had talked about, maybe not for this film, that kind of horror has influenced so many people, so many filmmakers in what they've done in that green. It's Rob Zombie. You can't tell me House of a Thousand Corpses, The Devil's Rejects is not heavily influenced. When she runs out there with the mask on and gets hit by that.
Yeah.
Love it.
Absolutely.
Love it. Love it. All right, let's see. So I'll let you guys pick since I'm not gonna have. I have one from the 1980s. You want the 1980s film, or do you want one of the more modern day?
Let's do more modern day because
Okay.
we both did 70s again. So
Well, I'll stick with early 2000s. I recently finished up film school. The pandemic kind of brought us back to a place where I went virtually to film school, and I great experience at Montclair State. Made 2 great films. And in one of my final semesters, I had an incredible editing class, and I chose the opening from 28 Days Later, Danny Boyle's film, 2003. Now, for me, this is my all-time favorite horror film, even though a lot of people don't consider it a horror film. For me, I think it's a great genre film.
28 Days Later?
28 Days Later, yes.
Absolutely horror film.
It's some people don't though. Some people don't.
I don't know how you,
because they look at it as a dark drama. They look at it as an apocalyptic film. They don't look at. I'm telling you what people say, folks. I don't agree with them either, but I'm just telling what they say.
did you say dark comedy?
No, dark drama. Dark drama.
I thought I'm like, who? What?
So with that being said, first of all, the cast is amazing. Cillian Murphy, Naomi Harris is in it. Christopher Eccleston. No,
Yeah,
I'm going to say
Eccleston.
Eccleston. Thank you. Among others, it was the first film in a long time that really not only made me want to make film, but it really made me go, how did they do that? When Danny Boyle has London completely vacant, and Cillian Murphy is just standing there next to that border pillar piece, and he's looking out over the bridge, across the waters, the London Tower, and no one's there. It just blew my mind. And this was really something that made me say, you know what, I would love to do that one day. And beyond the fact that it's a beautiful film, it's very gritty. It was one of the first big horror films shot on DV. It's a film that has one of the greatest openings in horror film history, bar none. It is such a catalyst why we deserve what we get.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who don't know, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it yet, but you should have watched it now, it's almost, 20 years old, almost 20 years old. When those animal activists, which absolutely you never want to do anything to animals, when they go into that lab and they say, we're pulling these apes, these chimps, these monkeys, whatever you want to call them, out of that cage. And she opens that up and the scientist is going, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. You don't know what you're doing. You have to stop. And that thing runs out, but within 30 seconds, you're infected. And that's one of the great things I love about 28 Days Later. It's not necessarily living dead. It's a rage infection, which I love how they classify that. The practical effects of this film, very little visual effects. I listened to the commentary with the writer Alex Garland and Danny Boyle, the director. Very little practical effects. This is very little visual effects, mostly practical. It's a film that captures every possible element of genre filmmaking and excels. It's paced well. It's so emotionally heavy. When the father turns after getting the drop, you look at it and you've had shit days, not any worse than him. Not any worse than him. The movie itself just takes you on that roller coaster and challenges you. Because I guarantee in this film, there is times where your perspective shifts from one to the other. What would you do? Like the Saw films, what would you do if you were the only survivor of this, or you were a group of survivors? Would you go with them? Would you fight against them? Would you give in? What would you do? So it's a great narrative conflict. And for me, beyond being my favorite genre film, it's a film that really made me want to go, you know what? I would love to do something like that. And maybe one day I will.
No, that scene, you nailed it. That scene with Brendan Gleeson when
the
drop goes into his eyes, and he knows, and he says, I think the daughter's name is Hannah.
Yeah.
He's like, Hannah, I love you. She's like, yeah, Dad. And it's like, you can see, what's going to happen. It's like, no. You guys went all this way. It's like you saved her. you survived all this time, and just for some stupid little accident. I mean, it wasn't the fight. It wasn't that. It was like a drop of blood from something that was completely related to what they were doing. And it's like, oh, but it's just a little thing like that.
And he has no time to react. He's pushing her back. He doesn't have time to say he's sorry or he look. It's just bam, and he's there. And that's one of the great things about this film also is when you look at these characters, when you look at the writing of the film, it's got such a balance to it because it's not all post-apocalyptic hell. There are some really beautiful scenes when they're in the supermarket, the music in the car. It's just a wonderful film that it's kind of a gateway film for a horror fan because it's not really pushing it where it's too graphic or extreme. It's actually got a great balance to it.
Well, yeah, because like when Naomi Harris, when they're in what's his name's house? They're in his family house.
Right.
He has the lights.
Jim's family house.
Yes, they come in,
through the skylight.
Ragers come in. And then her friend gets cut and the blood is going in. He's like, wait. And she immediately, without hesitation, just kills him. And it's not like it's one of those films where not like, oh no. It's like, no, she's like, this is what I have to do. This is who she's been with. It's a friend, it's a boyfriend, it's someone, but whatever it is, she's got to do it's like for the greater good. It's not like I can't be emotional right now. But then when the same thing happens to Jim, it's like you can see her hesitate. And that was such a beautiful moment that Danny Boyle captured, because it's like it's almost getting to that romance thing with them. You're thinking, and then of course it has that whole thing it is 28 days later, add a couple days because Jim's been awake now and all that stuff. But of course you've got the stupid soldiers that have to be like, well, we're gonna have to start procreating right now. I'm like, yes, because that's the main thing during any type of apocalypse. Always got to do the sex.
that's one of also the most heartbreaking scenes when she hands Hannah the pill, trying to make her, because she knows it's going to be terrible and she knows this is going to destroy her. And that's also one of the most satisfying things, that entire end sequence when they come in there and the one soldier who's infected is, he's freed. And he goes in there and just everyone is destroyed. That is, if you want a masterclass on how to construct an emotional roller coaster and really balance horror with the idea of reality, that is a great, great ending scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Oh, is it my turn again?
I got the monkey. That's not Gordon, by the way.
I believe it is your turn.
It's not Gordy. Okay, so now we get into the 80s. Woo, woo. I have two from 1982. So I'll start. First one will be Creep Show. Creep
Show
is, where is it? I've got so much stuff from Creep Show. I just got this recently.
Nice.
This is one of those movies that I will love because I remember watching it with my dad. Each one of the things, but especially it's like, where's my cake, Bedelia? I want my cake. And you've got Ed Harris doing the second best random 80s dance in a horror film. First one, of course, being Crispin Glover. But I don't know. Ed Harris.
Jimbo's dead fuck dance moves.
Ed Harris has some sweet dance moves on that. But you've got the Ted Danson segment. You've got the actual creeper itself, and then you've got Stephen King actually is influential in a lot of the stuff that I have for my top 5. But Stephen King, you lunkhead,
meteor shit.
And it's just so good. It's the one with the cockroaches was probably the weakest one to me.
I love that one.
Yeah, that
that
one.
always-
That one.
E.G. Marshall.
That's the one I
Upton
skipped.
Pratt.
I skipped that one.
He's amazing. E.G. Marshall's amazing. Just all those cockroaches, just always creep me out. But I mean, the crate. Oh, I've got a crate thing too. Shoot. Yeah. The crate.
Adrienne Barbeau.
The crate is absolutely amazing. You've got Adrienne Barbeau. You have Hal Holbrook. Everything regarding so much blood, all of that. It's like, oh, and Billy is just horrible. So it's like, you don't want him to actually do it. But when Billy does meet her maker, it's like, okay, fine. That's all right. That's okay. I love the crate. That still is one of my favorite ones. But yeah, it's that kind of introduced me to, or maybe it did. Yeah. That's probably my intro, my gateway drug into horror anthologies is Creepshow.
Yeah, that was definitely my first too. Although there was a series when I was a kid that I used to watch. I mean, we're talking movies instead of the series but it was Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Right.
That I absolutely loved as a kid. But as far as movies go, Creepshow was it. And the follow up was okay, but there's nothing like that original.
I'll say this. I love Creepshow. I tell you, that's a great poll by you when it comes to it. There's so much to love with that. And Leslie Nielsen, who made his life in comedy later on, such a great villain and dramatic actor. But I'll tell you what, out of the entire Creepshow films, 3, right? It ends up being 3 total. 5. Oh my God. I'm way behind. But in 2, The Raft is my favorite. I love The Raft.
The Raft was
Yeah.
The Raft was the best part of the second one for sure.
God. But Creepshow is definitely one of the best. But I'll tell you what, E.G. Marshall, the effects they do where the roaches pop out of his head.
Ugh.
I love it. So many cockroaches. So good. So good.
Oh, believe me, it's a compliment that I hate it so much because it's like, oh, gross, so gross, so gross. But I can hold my breath for a long, long time watching it, so it's fine.
Hey, and don't forget, Tom Atkins is in there playing the dad.
Yep.
Well, and
although
Stephen King's son.
Yeah. It's Tom Atkins minus the mustache, which is probably why a lot of people don't catch that.
Oh yeah, I had him sign it.
Nice.
Like, stop reading this crap, Tom Atkins. And Adrienne Barbeau signed it too.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Very
Nice.
cool.
All right.
You're up.
So
Go ahead.
I'm up. Okay. I'm going to stay in the 70s on number 3, and it's also my favorite film of all time. Is Jaws, the original Jaws. This one, that, like I said, they made a whole nation afraid to go in the water. Well, I was afraid to go in my grandparents' pool, as a kid because of this movie. What you got there?
I got Franny Vontae.
Oh,
Okay.
look at the fluff.
Yeah, she got a lot of fluff. She's missing her mommy tonight. Her mommy is seeing her family.
But the funny thing about Jaws is, okay, my grandparents, they had a pool from the time I was in diapers. Okay, so they always had the cookouts and everything. All the parties were at their house because they had the indoor pool or in-ground pool. And even though logically I knew that there was no connecting water to any outside rivers or streams or oceans or anything like that, there was a tree in the corner of their neighbor's yard which cast a shadow in the corner of the deep end of the pool. And I always, I don't know, in my head, I just had this, that if I didn't watch, if I turned my back, Jaws was coming out of and it was going to get my ass. I mean, I don't know. That's just what it was. The music, everything was just, I mean,
Exactly.
even when I was a kid, my grandpa, in the pool, he would come up with me, mess with me in the pool, and he would do this,
John
and-
Williams.
Yeah, I mean, so that was definitely a huge influence, as far as I'm concerned, and being a summer, always around the water, at the beach or at the lake or something. That's definitely a big one for me.
I think this is a film, and I love Jaws. This is a film that has transcended pop culture so much, and it's what you don't see that is more terrifying than what you do see. And that, a lot of people, a lot of filmmakers will say we've got to throw the kitchen sink at the viewer so they absorb everything. It's, that's one of the things as a filmmaker and as a judge and so many other things, a journalist over the years, usually less is more. And it's a blessing that this happened the way it did with Jaws, because maybe the movie is never as successful or impactful if that shark is there all the time. Because I just recently saw The Reef 2 Stalked. I talked to the filmmaker, Andrew, who did the first Reef, and that's one of the things he talked about. Less is more. You don't want to see the shark. You want to focus on the characters. And the idea of that Dolly, I think Dolly's, if I'm correct, on Roy Scheider as he's watching the beach, and you're pulled in, and it makes you
that's
feel
definitely
like
a Hitchcock.
you are there.
That's a Hitchcock.
It's a Hitchcock, absolutely.
Yes.
But you feel like you're there, and you feel the panic and the anxiety, and it's so great in how it is, and so vulnerable, which is wonderful.
And the way and to kind of go off of what you said, the way that Spielberg keeps the creature hidden, that wasn't the intent with
Right.
the movie. That happened by accident, just because the damn Bruce wouldn't work. They had problems getting it to work right. So they were it was by accident, and they actually couldn't show the shark because the damn thing wouldn't work. But it obviously worked out to his favor, because it's one of the probably his most successful film, and it's what really put him on the map, and
it did. Well,
skyrocketed his career.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, when these filmmakers made these films, there wasn't an intent that it was going to be a huge box office success. It was making a passion project. I mean, James Cameron with Terminator. How much?
Yeah.
What did he make? $1 off of it? $1, because he wanted the creative control, and he was able to make something. There is a great documentary right now on Disney Plus about Star Wars and the gang that brought Star Wars together. And I'm watching the first episode. I'm finishing up. It's phenomenal, because it's talking about all the origins of these craftsmen and artists and people who were jack of all trades. And that's one thing about that I love about 70s and 80s horror, is the fact that this was something where people came together and it was a unified filmmaking process. The 90s kind of forgot that. I mean, you can say that, I think, pretty honestly about it. And it shows in the craftsmanship of these films. The independent circuit is really kind of as close as we've gotten to something like that in quite a while.
Yeah.
So, at least in my opinion.
No, I completely agree. The 70s really, you didn't have the creators like, well, I'm only this, and I'm only this. It's like, okay, I have to do this, and this. And I feel like in the past 5 years, I've seen more, and it's probably, it's also, lack of budget and stuff,
Right.
But I've talked to directors like, that, when I talk to them about their special effects and stuff, it's like, how did you do that? What was your budget? It's like, well, we went to someone and asked them like, how much would it cost to do this? Like 30,000. It's like, okay, great. So I'm going to do it myself, because
Right.
I'm not going to pay this person $30,000 to do it. So I'm going to write it. I'm going to direct it. And then I'm going to do these because I can spend that on this, and I can spend that on this person's salary to
Right.
get more cast members. It's like, and I'd rather do that than, and I feel like that was a huge part of the 70s. And also, like you said, I mean, there was no holds barred, but yeah, Jaws, that started the summer blockbuster. Like that put the summer blockbuster on the map, was Jaws. And, ever since then, everyone's been trying to go after that, Firefly of megawatt $1 million madness. That's now $1 billion madness, which it's crazy how these movies are now making $1 billion in a month's time. Like that is insane to me. Wow. But yeah, Jaws is always, I mean, it's the one. I love that camaraderie between the three of them.
The chemistry is amazing.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I would never have ever thought that Richard Dreyfuss would be, knowing like what he end up what he was doing, like becoming an Oscar winner and whatnot. But it's like, yeah, I mean, Brody, Hooper and Quint, and it's like, it's that, showing their scars and talking about bow-legged women and, all that stuff. I mean, that right there, that moment where they're just all bonded together in the boat, and it's actually kind of a happy moment. And then you realize, and it's like, at the end you realize like, oh yeah, I should have realized then that most of them are going to die, or someone's going to die. Because it was just too good to be true.
Exactly. And real quick before I jump into my next one, that's one of the beauties of this. You're given time to be able to invest in these characters. Before the shark, you'll have little jabs from the shark, but overall you come to invest your time in them. And it's so crucial. And I'll bring up Horror Hound Weekend in the film festival, which is kind of September 9th through the 11th, horrorhoundweekend.com.
Yes.
There is going to be a workshop, which I'm going to be leading, as far as I know, talking about casting. I've had a great experience in very limited capacity of casting. And I'll tell you what, the money I spent on casting for No Good Deed, with really some great actors who really took my material and did wonders with it, it really leveled up. It was worth spending the money rather than worrying about practical effects or worrying about this or that. You to have a great story, you need great people to bring it to life, and Jaws is that in spades.
Absolutely.
All right, so this time I'm actually going to be on time with my picture here. Okay, so the next one I'm going to do is The Strangers.
Oh, good one.
I love
Strangers. Now, this is a very different origin story for me and why I'm a fan of this film. Besides the fact that it has, I talked about one of the greatest openings with 28 Days Later. This is one of the greatest closing sequences of all time in a horror film. The simple question of why are you doing this? Why would you do this? Because you were home. There's no rhyme or reason other than the fact that these people are just no good, however you want to classify that. But Brian Bertino, he is, every day of the week, he is, for me, a master of modern day horror. He's able to put these emotional stories together. Very simple premise. A couple is fighting. They're in a house, isolated, and three people decide to come and fuck with them. And guess what? They do it. And for me, I love this film. This is one of my favorite films of all time. I've talked with cast. I have the poster signed in the studio here. But for me, that's not the reason why it's on here. In issue 37 of Horror Hound, I recreated that shot right behind me right now. And it is on the subscription page for the issue. And that is how I made first contact with Horror Hound magazine. It was my ex, it was three friends of mine, and it was the doll face, her boyfriend. And we recreated the entire shot. And my ex has the magazine holding it behind the chair, showing Horror Hound, and the doll face has a copy like this, kind of accusing them of reading Horror Hound. So for me to be able to see this film, be so heavily influenced by this film, because it is a really scary film. I don't get scared very often, but it is a scary film because right now in our houses, there could literally be someone outside our window looking in right now. And that's terrifying to know that you are not even safe in your house, that there is a way for someone to get in if they really wanted to, or terrorize you to work their way into there. Because you sit there and you go, well, why don't they fight back? It's 3 people. Come on. They aren't brandishing weapons right away. Why don't they fight back? Because the fear and the terror is so palpable that they can't really do anything. Plus, they're already on an emotional roller coaster. The movie The Strangers, yes, it's inspired by real events, but it's very, very, very lean, just like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Same sort of premise when it comes to it. But it's really, really a well-crafted, slow burn, terrifying film. One of the most terrifying films, because it's 2008, one of the most terrifying films of the new millennium by far. And it shows you that very little equals a whole lot when you know how to manipulate those strings. Oh, and Tom and Andy's score and music is amazing. There you go.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of The Strangers too. But I am curious. Are you as big a fan of the sequel to Pray at Night?
I like the sequel. I think it was way too long before we had the sequel. And for those who don't know, there's 3 more films coming. They announced it like a couple days ago.
They did.
Really?
I myself am not a fan of the sequel.
So I like it. It's a different vibe that they bring to it because it's a European director and he brought different sensibilities. So it's never will be like the original, Katie, but I can understand how you feel about it.
I don't mind that it's not like the original. I just don't it's just the fact that the film to me is like a scavenger hunt of trying to figure out which scene was influenced by another horror film, because honestly there's like 18 that I can think of on the top of my head. And I actually did that with some friend. Okay, this is Christine and this is this. And this is this, and this is, and then plus the fact that to make Christina Hendricks, who is just a gorgeous woman, just put her in that Tennessee tuxedo, like denim on denim thing to try and like frump her up. I'm like, why do you have to do that? Like you don't need to do that. And there's also a continuity thing. It's like, it's a dumb thing, but it's one of the things I do. The daughter is in one scene who doesn't know how to smoke, by the way. Yeah, girl, that's how I did it when I was in college. Yeah, I'm smoking. How are you? Yeah, that's not how you smoke. So I don't know what you're doing. But the fact that in one scene, her bra is black. In another scene, she's wearing, it's like her bra is white. It's continuity, people. Like whoever was supposed to take care of that, you should be in trouble because I caught it right away.
Gotcha.
Oh, by the way, and then the end was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And now you, Jeremy.
Well, one thing I will say about the Pray at Night is, and it's funny because just last week we had dinner at the diner where the family stops on the way to when they leave is just like 5 minutes from my house.
Wow.
So we actually went there for dinner, and I've been there a couple of times and had ice cream. So if you want to, when you guys come into town, if you come in early enough, we could shoot over and get, and we could summon our inner Sean Clark and do kind of a postmortem visit to Horror's Hallowed Grounds, which is I don't know. And then there's a barn also on the way to my mom's property that she just sold. I don't know if you guys have seen the new Wrong Turn movie.
Yeah.
Well, where the barn is, where where they're hiding, and then they see them carrying the guy on the thing.
Yeah.
That movie was actually filmed on my mom's property.
Oh, very cool. I know a
it
few
was
people who are in that movie.
Very cool.
It was just in New Richmond, just over by New Richmond, Ohio, just across the river. Even though they say it's the Appalachian Trail in West Virginia or wherever, but it's really Ohio. But I see that barn every time I go to my mom's, so it's kind of creepy. And she got paid actually because they had all their trailers and everything on her property.
Nice.
And then they destroyed this like, I don't know how old wall that was there. It was, they weren't very conscious of the surrounding land. I'll say that.
They never are. They never are. Productions.
Yeah. So, but yeah, if you guys come in early enough, yeah, I can. It's actually, the diner's called Fillmore's, and it's one of those seasonal type places. Like they close down for the winter, and then they open up, in the spring, summer, and stuff like that. But amazing banana split there.
Oh, that sounds good.
It's amazing.
Sounds good.
So, all right, is it my turn again?
I think it's Katie's.
Yeah, for number 4.
Okay. All right, let's do it.
So number 4 for me, another one from 1982, one of the best years in horror, is Poltergeist. Poltergeist.
Good one. It's a good one.
Scared the crap out of me. Poltergeist. I mean, I get glued to the TV. There could be, I think honestly, there was a tornado going on at my house when I was probably around Carol Ann's age, and I was just so transfixed on the television. I didn't hear the siren. I didn't do anything. We were supposed to go downstairs, and then I think I got in trouble. Yeah, I mean, there could be so many things going on, and I would just be watching the television, and it's like the world is just, it's that I'm just a zombie. This film also, my sister and Carol Ann, when they were there, I think they're exactly the same age, and my sister looks exactly like Carol Ann, like obsessively cute. I mean,
Wow.
obsessed, like disgustingly cute, just like she was at that age. So that's always thing. But then it's this part with the steak and the sink,
Oh, yeah.
and where the guy just is tearing. Now, I will say this, that has always scared the crap out of me. So many factors of that film scared the crap out of me. Just with the little bit, and I love the sister, but that part where he's like ripping open his face and stuff is just like a core memory in horror to me. See it now, and I'm like, oh. I mean, yeah, I guess for the time that's pretty good. But I'm like, wow, I was really scared of it. Like this, like freaked the crap out of me. And now I see it, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, those effects aren't bad. Yeah.
She's jaded, Oz. She's jaded.
But the thing is, the rest of it is still really good. Even like the CGI with that weird like thing that's like when Jo Beth Williams is trying to go into the bedroom to get the kids, and that like ghost like crazy weird creature, whatever it is, I don't even know. And it's, again, watching it later on, I do not remember all of the Star Wars memorabilia and all the Star Wars stuff that was all over the rooms. I mean, my God. And the fact that when they're talking about the ages of how old everybody is, they say it's like, Craig T. Nelson is like 33 or 34, and then Jo Beth Williams is 32, and then their daughter is 16. And I was like, hold up, what? Wait a minute, your daughter's 16 and you're 32? Well, I'm doing the math now. What?
He's 30. They're 32, playing probably older.
So you were 16, 15. Oh, that's a little scandalous for 82 to have that. I didn't realize that. And I brought that up to a friend of mine. He's like, oh my God. I'm like, I've seen this movie 100 times. How do I not? It's like, yeah. Watching it with two of my friends, like just completely opening I mean, I don't know. Maybe they took those out when it was like, if it was on TV and whatnot. And I just missed these parts again, kind of like Piranha. It's like, I didn't know this was in there. But what they did leave in there, they left all the scares, plus that beautiful music that's in there. And then the
Jerry Goldsmith, baby.
What?
Jerry Goldsmith, baby.
Oh, Jerry Goldsmith. I mean, that little like crazy, like almost satanic lullaby, like la 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 la. I remember trying to actually kind of record that while I was watching it on TV. I'm like, ooh, this is so good. But yeah, all the entire cast is amazing. Such bad luck with everything that happened.
Yes.
Dominic Dunn had such a promise. Heather O'Rourke. I mean, so many people and so many. Yeah, I mean, the sequels will have a cute place in my heart. Just rewatching him and rewatching him and rewatching him, because that's what you did when you were a kid. You just rewatch those films until those video cassettes like just busted out. But yeah, Toby Hooper. I know a lot of people are gonna like Oz, like you. They're gonna have Texas Chainsaw. To me, this was my gateway into Toby Hooper, and then the next one was Life Force, which I still love. My favorite space vampire movie ever. Oh yeah, that one I did see the boobies.
You did see the boobies.
You saw everything.
Well, I will throw this in real quick. One of the great films, one of the great cinematographers of all time, Matthew Leonetti. I mean, he did so much with Star Trek. He did Strange Days, The Butterfly Effect, and he did so many comedies later on in his career, which is crazy. And Michael Kahn, what an editor. That film is wonderful because that pool scene with the real skeletons is terrifying because of the simple fact, yes, it's skeletons popping out of the water, but the reaction of Joe Beth Williams is just incredible. So Poltergeist is, I'm still going to go Texas Chainsaw Massacre. For me, is it because we don't know if Cooper actually really directed that film.
I was
wondering if
that was going to come up. You know,
Yeah.
They say he was behind the camera, but
yes, he's behind the camera in the closet, tied up, so he wouldn't invade or deal with anything with that. What are you giving us, the Macarena? Oh, that's a new Macarena. You're number one to me, my dear.
She's doing the whole Star. She's doing the whole Star Lord. She's doing the Star Lord thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Dominic Dunn does that in Poltergeist.
I know. I thought you were just treating me so kind and saying I was number one. No,
you're number one, Jay. You're number one.
I'm number one. All right, Oz, what you got for us?
Okay. I'm gonna stay in the early 80s on this next one. Another similar story. It was around that same probably time period for the Halloween too, but I'm not sure how a lot of people, if they remember. I don't know what our demographic is as far as age of our listeners, our viewers. But if anyone remembers when cable first came out, okay, cable was nothing like it is now. And a lot of premium channels that you watched movies on, such as HBO, were not like they are now. There was no such thing as original programming. They basically recycled the same handful of movies for a month, and before things would change. And you remember, you would get that little square guide in the mail with your bill, and it would say what was going to be on. And a lot of times, what was on early in the morning was the same thing that was on in the afternoon. So one particular morning, I'm downstairs, coming downstairs before school, eating cereal, and I guess I left HBO on. I used to watch Transformers and G.I. Joe cartoons before I went to school. Well, this particular morning, HBO was on, and it was the end of Friday the 13th Part 3. Okay, it was when right at the chase scene where he starts chasing Chris and everything. And so I'm watching this. This is my first introduction to Friday the 13th, Jason Voorhees, any of this kind of stuff. I just see this hockey mask dude chasing this chick, and I had to go to school, and I didn't get to see the end of it. But luckily, like I said, back in the day with the cable, what was typically on at 7 was usually on around 3 in the afternoon. So when I got home from school, I got to watch it from the beginning. So I got to see, oh man, he had a sack on his head at the beginning of this movie, which was the end of part 2. So then I got to watch the entire thing. And then I also then dawned on me, okay, this is supposed to be seen in 3D because some of these shots look really weird. But when I saw the opening credits, okay, I could figure out it's supposed to be 3D. So that one had a big influence on me, because then that made me want to go to the video store, and I had to rent part 2 and then part 1 to get caught up. And then part 4 was the first one that I actually got to see in the theater. I was around the same age as Corey Feldman. So I conned my dad into taking me. And that was even, I remember seeing the Friday the 13th part when it used to come out in the newspaper, and it would say what the movie times were and stuff like that. So that one, I'm loving seeing that's on your list there, Katie. Which is funny because just this past weekend, I finally got to get Corey Feldman to sign my Camp Crystal Lake sign. He was kind of a douchebag a little bit, though. He insisted on personalization.
What? Shock. No,
yeah, I know.
Huge douchebag.
Well, he always has been. But I thought, given the fact that there's so many signatures on that and no one else personalized anything, and I thought that he would be more, let's make an exception, and not insist on personalizing. No, he said if I wanted him to sign it and not personalize it, it was going to be double the cost. It was going to be $120 instead of $60. And I was like, oh, got to be freaking kidding me. I was like, no one else on here has personalized this, Corey. Come on, man. You're going to be the only one to do this, And it's such a great piece too. And then, the end of the month, when I'll finally get Kim Beck to sign it. I'll see her in Gettysburg. But yeah, that one really got everything started. And Richard Brooker was such a good Jason. And the way he moved, and he seemed to have some kind of he wasn't just a mindless killer in this one. He seemed like he had some intelligence to him. He was so much more than these just a crazed killer and so many other horror films. So that's really what got me into Friday the 13th. And then of course part 4, Ted White was just totally killed it, because Ted is, to me, the hands down the best Jason ever of all of them. And not only is he the best Jason, I mean he's just a great person.
I was just gonna say that
he is
a wonderful, wonderful person.
And I've gotten to meet him several times, and when I was on the Camp Blood podcast, we had him on several times, and just such a great guy, just such a great guy. One of these, I hope to get to see him again one of these days, but I know he's getting up in his age, up in his years, things like that. But that's kind of what 3 and 4 for Friday the 13th for me were the biggest draws. I mean, of course, part two was pretty good too, but that was my introduction. So I've always been, always had a fondness for 3. Because it was the first one I ever saw. So,
wow.
but then part 4 is my favorite, because Jason was just, everybody got it, and they got it in a bad way, because Jason was just so much more menacing than in any other installment, in my opinion. So
4, I think, is just one of the most perfect examples of an 80s horror film ever. I mean, you've got all the stereotypical people running, I fell, it's raining, let's have sex, boobs, 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 and you guys are partying and drinking, guess what's gonna happen? And then more and more boobs,
More
in the beginning.
boobs.
Poor
Boobs and
Axel.
twins. I mean, what? Come on, you got the Doublemint twins. I mean,
I
come
want
on,
the
they were-
sleeping. It's one of the best kills ever. The sleeping bag kill is one of the best kills ever. From any horror franchise you're gonna find, it is the best. So I'm just saying.
And I mean, you do have, I don't want to say she's one of the worst final girls, but the fact that Corey Feldman's sister left him in the house, took the dog, so left her little brother in the house alone when she couldn't find her mom, and then went with the guy that she just met. Not the most honorable thing to do as an big sister there, girl.
She already knew he was a douchebag, so it's fine.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's it. She saw that.
See, I will argue that Trish was one of the. See, when we had this conversation as far as who our favorite final girl was, everybody wants to go to Jenny, Amy Steele. I actually went with Trish because, to me, I think she had the most trauma and was dealing with the most. Everybody else was just trying to survive. She's trying to protect her brother. She doesn't know where her mother is and is probably assuming that she's probably dead too. So, I mean, she's dealing with a lot all at the same time.
And she did it in a shirt, doing it all in a shirt dress. So, I mean, that she does have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody else has pants or short. Well, actually, no, everybody else has jeans. And she's the only one in
Jeans
a
or
shirt
jean
in a
shorts,
dress. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was also the introduction to the first computer in the horror movie. You know,
That I didn't know. Really?
Oh yeah.
Computer
With
don't
Corey
lie.
Feldman.
The computer don't lie. No, I was talking about the other. I was talking about Teddy's computer.
Which movie?
Friday Part 4, where he's
Yeah.
typing. Remember,
Isn't that
he's talking to Jimbo in the car. And let me put it in the old computer.
Oh, gotcha. I thought you meant Corey Feldman, like in his room doing the stuff on his stuff.
Oh,
And then
Zach's
the
on?
practical
No,
effects.
No, it was just a joke, but it was, let me put it in the old computer. And, it says you're a dead fuck, that kind of thing. So,
Well, let me switch it up here.
how you gonna follow that up, Jay?
Oh, I'm going to follow it up with the 1980s film.
Oh,
Nice. Really? Cat's Eye,
Really?
huh?
James Woods.
Cat's Eye. So for me, I wanted to have one that was a throwback, and I thought about Aliens because just like as you had talked about, waking up early in the morning on TBS watching Aliens, and you're so young, and it frightens you so much because it adds action to a already successful formula. But the idea of Aliens or the 1990 film Fear with Ali Sheedy was another one that I made sure when Blockbuster closed, I got my copy of it. Love that film.
You son of a, that was almost on I actually have the VHS of that.
I have 2 VHS. Both cover arts got destroyed in the flood. The VHS survived. So
I love that movie.
Fear is wonderful, but for me, this was one of the few films I could sit and watch with my family that was horror. And I'll tell you something. Alan King is one of the greatest villains of all time. He is such a terrible, terrible person. You see it in there right before he throws, and you'd never be able to get away with the cat thrown into a shop room now. Just saying. But James Woods, I mean, his name is Dick, enough said. But the simple fact that Creepshow was a wonderful anthology. But for me, Cat's Eye was just incredible because I could sit there with my family and watch it, because none of my family are horror fans. But Cat's Eye, they could sit down and watch. You have a young Drew Barrymore, you've got James Woods in it, you've got Alan King, you've got a wide cast in this film, and a really, really investing wraparound with that little goblin, that creepy ass goblin that's trying to steal the breath. And how cool and how great the cat is fighting it off. It's a protagonist with no dialogue other than some meows. I mean, Stephen King, he really knew what to do when he was putting together the platforms for these adaptations. And there's nothing like the wife being put in that shock box and just going up there and James Woods being held there. And then you think it's over, you think everything's fine, and then you see the finger missing. And how about when he throws the broom and the guy goes, "Hook," and you see the dripping? I mean, it's terrifying because, again, and maybe between infection films and home invasion for me, because it's stuff that really can happen. Maybe that's not why I'm a big fan of the old school stuff, because I don't get many nightmares. I'm not worried that some guy in a hockey mask is going to run up after me. I'm not worried about eating barbecue. I love barbecue, so I'm not worried about that either. So the point is that it's something that there are people who are really like this, that really are that menacing and threatening. But with Alan King especially, he does it with humor. And on a drop of a dime, it's like the stepfather. On a drop of a dime, he switches, and he's just one look to the muscle. Then he goes back and he's smiling. It's just terrifying, but it's so great. And also, Robert Hayes going around that building, him stepping there. I mean, it's so tense. It makes you on the seat of your, maybe now it's not as, but watching it when I was younger, you sat there, and when he slips and the sound and all that stuff, it's something that my family and I could enjoy, but later on I enjoyed just as much. And for me, 1985, Louis Teague is one of the few filmmakers I did not speak to that is on my list of filmmakers to speak to. I've spoken to hundreds, almost 2,000 in total of people over the 10 years. And he's one of the few I did not talk to about Cat's Eye, but that's my number 4 film because of it. Not only a family film, but because it's just my favorite anthology.
All right.
The Robert Hayes segment, honestly, I think stands the test of time. I think it does a good job because, I mean, that stupid pigeon,
Yes,
like pecking at his ankle, and it's like he wants to kick it, but he's got to keep his balance.
exactly.
And then
And it's all for nothing.
It's all for nothing. It's all for nothing, because then when he gets to, it's like, all right, here's the bag full of money and your girl, and it's like the guy's wife's head is in it. It's like, oh my God, it was just all for nothing. It was just
What's
like
in the bag? What's in the bag?
What's in the bag?
What's in the
So-
bag?
Well, and I mean, I like the whole, like, because what are there 3 segments?
3. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that cat and mouse game with all of them, because you've got the one with, it's like, all right, it's like, this is a challenge, you know, you quit smoking, or it's like, we're going to cut your wife's ring finger off. And at the end, when she's like sipping, it's like, yeah, cheers. Like, oh shit, you got to lose 10 pounds. You got to lose 10 pounds, or I'm going to cut your wife's pinky.
Oh God.
And when he's on the highway smoking, and those people are
Yes, and he's
making out, and it's like, oh my God, they're everywhere. How did you do that?
And he goes, I didn't smoke it. I didn't smoke it.
Yeah.
And he flicks it. It's like he's so on edge the entire story of what's going on as he becomes more immersed into it. It's such great tension and paranoia. I love it. I love it. All right, Katie, let's finish this. Come on. Here we go.
All right.
Wrap it up.
Okay. So my 5th, we're still going to do honorable mentions too, but I'll do my 5th and my honorable mention. So my 5th was going to be The Fog. Honestly, Carpenter has been such an influence on me. Like, I want to say my whole life. However, I know I'm not saying any of his films in this thing. This one did make me cry because the old lady babysitter reminded me of my grandma, and I remember crying and making my mom call her, and then my mom yelled at me. It's like, if you're gonna keep watching, if you're gonna act like this, you're gonna have to stop watching these movies. So while that is like a 5.1, or it should be 5, I don't know. The Hitcher is honestly
C. Thomas Howell, right?
Yeah, C.
Rutger
Thomas Howell,
Hauer.
Rutger Hauer, Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Yeah.
This is an underrated gem that I don't know why it's
So
not
great.
a class. I mean, to me, it's a classic. But you want to talk about cable staple? This one right here. a guy, just a kid trying to make a buck, driving a car that he doesn't own, driving it. He has to go from one place to the other. He's bored. He sees this guy in pouring rain. He's like, you know what? And he starts like, my mother told me never to do this. And that's where it all goes to shit. And it's like the hitcher is Rutger Hauer. Luckily, C. Thomas Howell kicks him out of the car. He thinks he's on his own, and it's just talk about the cat and mouse. It's cat and mouse all the way through. The scene where he's at the diner, where C. Thomas Howell's at the diner eating fries and just eating them, and then he's like about to put one in his mouth, and you realize it's a finger. And I mean, this I think is a brilliant film, because what you were saying about stuff you don't see, the scene where Jennifer Jason Leigh as Knox, who is one of the only people that believes C. Thomas Howell during this whole thing, because it's like everywhere he goes, there is carnage. Buildings blow up. Families in station wagons are just on the side of the road, and then there's blood. And for me, one of the things about this film that is really, put an impact on me is like every single year with my family, we would be in a station wagon, like driving across the country for our family vacation. And anytime it's like, I think about that, I always think it's like, what if any of these people is the hitcher, like at any point? And I mean, I didn't know anything about serial killers at that time or all that stuff. I mean, we didn't watch the news and stuff like that. But the scene where Knox is like between the bed of that semi and then the trailer, and it's like she's just being pulled, and what you don't see is what they don't show is actually worse than, it's because it's in your mind. That was one of those first times in a film that, they didn't show what happened, and it's actually so much better. It was gory. It was great. Plus, I had the hugest crush on Rutger Hauer. So this started that, the bad boy thing. It's like, oh, he's so cute. Oh, he's so handsome. He can't be that bad. Oh, come on now. And then it had and then it started the series on HBO. It wasn't The Hitcher. It was The Hitchhiker, which one of my favorite things growing up was watching The Hitchhiker. The opening song. I think they had two different Hitchhikers. One was one season. The other one was like for the other like 3 seasons or something like that. Love those stories. But yeah, The Hitcher, always a classic. Always, I tell people you need to watch this film. This is a great film. And the remake is not that great because you just can't beat Rutger Hauer. I'm sorry. Anything that he was like at the top of his game with like Lady Hawk and Blade Runner and The Hitcher. Oh, honorable mention, sorry. Salem's Lot, because because it's a TV show technically, so it's not a full movie. We'll never get over the brothers tapping on the window and doing it's like let me in, which still one of the freakiest things I've ever can think of in my entire life, and one of my favorite vampire films. And you already mentioned Friday the 13th, but it's my true fandom, Toxic Avenger again. I know it's like, is it horror, is it camp? It just is just so grotesque and funny, but it will always have a place in my heart because it reminds me of my dad, and watching this way too young, but actually also laughing at so many of the scenes because it's like, this is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen, and I love it.
It's funny because they're supposed to be remaking Toxic Avenger.
Yeah, with like
It's done. Malcolm Blair directed. Elijah Wood is playing the villain. There's a whole bunch. It's going to be it's probably going to be out later on this year. I wouldn't be surprised if it plays Fantastic Fest this year.
Well, it's what I was going to say is Christopher Nelson, who is famous for he does Nebula's makeup for Avengers, and obviously he's done Michael Myers through this last trilogy. he actually wanted to do the makeup for a Toxic Avenger, but something I think came up that he was unable to do it. I think probably one of these 3 Halloween movies, probably. But yeah, it was. I thought that was kind of neat because he thought he wanted to make the creature and make it look really really good. But
Yeah. And then we got these, but we just don't have time. There's just too many. There's too many
Yeah,
that made me a
there are
fan, that just like put horror in my heart forever.
that's true. My last one here. I guess I'm a child of the 80s. I guess, growing up in the 80s, so many things stuck with me, but I'm going to go with this one. It's my favorite zombie movie of all time. And it's Day of the Dead from
Nice.
Romero. I know a lot of people will say, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead. While I appreciate those movies and I'm a fan of those movies also, Day of the Dead was the first one that I saw that really looked like it could have been real to me. And Dawn of the Dead was the first one that was in color, but the zombies, they just didn't look, they looked a little, they looked a little blue, and they didn't look like real corpses to me. I mean, I don't know, it just didn't look genuine enough. But Day of the Dead, and I think it really lived up to the moniker that's on the poster, the subtitle of the darkest day in horror the world's ever seen. Because I mean, here's this small group of people who were led to pretty much believe are the last remaining few people left that are still trying to carry on. I mean, of course, there's probably still some survivors somewhere, but they allude to the fact that they hadn't heard from people in Washington and how long, and they're running short on food, and they're isolated underground with in this what's left of the military and the science, and scientists have always been at the mercy of the military, and and they had just such great villains in this, and you could literally see how the apocalypse, I guess, for lack of a better word, really affected everybody, because everybody with the sciences are really batshit crazy. Almost everybody in that movie is batshit crazy. I mean, Rhodes is a total asshole, and he's crazy. Dr. Richard Liberty, probably the best performance in the whole movie, but I mean, he was crazy as Frankenstein. I mean, I think the coolest cat in the whole place was Terry Alexander, because all I do is fly the whirlybird. I mean, I fly the whirlybird, and we just drink bourbon. That's all we do. So, but I thought it was just such a gloomy and gritty feel. And once Miguel gets bitten, and he goes up and he lets all the fucking zombies in the compound, and he just lets them eat him. And I mean, I don't know. It just, that to me just kind of looks to me like the end of the world.
I love it. It's the idea of consumption. It's one of the greatest fears that we can have. But it took me a while to come around to that particular film. I had my opportunity to talk to cast over the years. And I'll tell you something, I've come to really, really appreciate what Romero did with that film. And the idea, again, isolation horror is some of the scariest horror you're going to find. And it's, the way that they are cut off from the world. And at the time, that realistic feel of what it was like. I mean, that trilogy, that's one of the great things about the Dead trilogy, is the fact that the fans are so divided over the 3 films. And that's the great thing. There's such a cult love for what Romero was able to do, but there's such a division. Not everyone loves. I'm more of a fan of Night of the Living Dead. I love Night of the Living Dead. I
love Night of the Living Dead because of more of the social
right, exactly. But you're looking
message.
For something beyond that, and you saw the evolution of what Romero was able to do using horror as a platform. for what he wanted to talk about in storytelling. And that's what makes him such a great storyteller. God rest his soul. But it makes the trilogy so great because there's something for everybody.
Right. Yeah.
Honorable mentions, young man.
Honorable mention for me. There's so many of them. I mean, I absolutely loved My Bloody Valentine. Thought, that was one really, really cool movie that should have probably deserved a sequel. And I mean, I just thought the minor, the look of the killer, everything, the whole thing, again, the isolation thing down in the mine and all that kind of stuff was really well done. That one, and then Christine. I've always had a special place in my heart for Christine, and I love the fact most of the time if I've read a book and seen a movie, and the movie deviates from so much from the source material, I either love one and hate the other. But this one is one where I really appreciated both. I really, really love the book, and I really, really love the movie, even though they're so different. So that's what I can come up with off the top of my head right now, as far as honorable mentions. I mean, there's so many. It's hard to. It's like picking which one of my kids is my fit. Well, that's not so hard to do. I should say no, but it's like which of your kids do you love the most? Well, I'd have to say the four-legged one because she doesn't talk back since quite as much. So, but yeah, there's just so many that I've come to appreciate so much over the years. I mean, Graveyard Shift is another one that comes to mind. I mean, the vampire, film. So I mean, I could sit here all night and just talk about movies, which is.
Oh, I understand that. I mean, hello, I had a stack of VHS tapes and it's like crap. No, yeah, crap.
Do you have a working VCR? Still,
I have two, thank you.
Really? Wow. All right.
I have the little TV with the VCR in it.
Oh, you have the combo. Gotcha.
She does tape.
I remember when I got rid of my last VCR, it was one of those dual where you could pop a tape in one and copy it with the other. That was, yeah.
See, I'm just waiting for them to have the VHS Blu-ray or 4K combo and stuff. People think I'm crazy. I'm like, oh, really? Because they're starting to do like VHS, like more and more outlets are doing VHS tapes. So
yes.
I think it's just a matter of time. Honestly, I think it's going to happen. But I mean, that's just me. Jay, what is your fifth and final?
Well, I'll do the honorable mentions first. I have a whole list. We talked about Fear and Aliens. That's definitely on the list. Audition is on the list. Takashi Miike. Stephen King's It, the good It. I'm just saying, love to Tim Curry because he, you know what? There's never a Pennywise other than Tim Curry. The Stand was fantastic. That period with Stephen King's in the miniseries. And the limited series 7 was another one. The Exorcist 3, Driller Killer. I love Driller Killer. That's another one.
Driller Killer. Gritty. Yes.
Great film. There's so many good ones. And Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That boating scene, terrifying. And you never expect it because you know what? You're a young kid watching it and it's so terrifying. But the honorable mention I want to throw out there, it's a little bit outside the box, is first of all, Jack Ketchum. I want to give credit to him and The Girl Next Door. This book, not really the movie, but the book. If it wasn't for Jack Ketchum, I might not be here right now doing this. He was one of my first interviews. His words afterwards really kept me going and wanting to be better at what I was doing. And God rest his soul. It was The Girl Next Door and his works that really, really turned me on to doing the radio show and doing interviews and really developing the craft. But my final one is amazing. Train to Busan. Now, this film, 2016, it's not very old, but I'm going to tell you something. I will argue with anyone that this is, in the last 20, 30, 40 years, one of the, if not the best zombie films of all time. For me, the reason why this is a favorite of mine and it really kind of shakes me is because back in 2016, it was the first year I went to Fantasia up in Montreal, and I missed Fantasia. I didn't go this year. We had the pandemic. I will go back next year. I promise those who are watching who know about that. I went ahead and I sat on a Sunday morning in the packed theater. I wasn't going to go to the screening, and then my friend Uds Barbieri, who runs North Bend, he's one of the people who runs North Bend. He ran the Ithaca Fantastic. He is one of the minds behind Yellow Veil Pictures with Joe and Justin and the rest of them. And he said, why don't you come and watch this film with us? It's going to be a blast. And I'm going to tell you something. I may have never been so immersed in film festivals if it had not been for this screening. To sit in a packed house watching for those who haven't seen, it's a story about an infected person who gets on a bullet train and basically infects the entire train for the most part. But that's just scratching the surface on all the relationships, all the emotion, all the incredible practical and visual effects, because the filmmaker himself saying, I have it here. Let's see if I can pull it up before Katie gets to it. Sang-ho Yeon.
Yes.
He is an animator who brought real life to cartoons and animations with Train to Busan. Now, the film itself doesn't give you, it's very ambiguous on the origins of this. You want Soul Station, which is animated if you want to find out the events leading up to it. But there's nothing like Train to Busan. Now, the end is a little campy and sappy. I come on, let's be honest about it. I think that's the weakness of the entire film, to be honest with you. It's nice, it's sweet, it's emotional at the end, but him being all goofy and smiling and falling off the train, please, okay. But the scene that behind me right now is one of the greatest scenes in my opinion, in modern cinema. Instead of sitting there running, they are working their way up to get the baseball player's girlfriend to go ahead and get the sister of one of the other passengers who's back with the rest of the crew, his daughter, Don's daughter, and Don Lee's pregnant wife. And when they come in there and those drums start going, dun, 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 and he wraps his hands up, because someone Don Lee's size, he's not going to shrink away from a challenge. He goes in there, they go in there, and the next minute of it, not even that, it is the most excitement. And I literally screamed at the top of my lungs with so many other people when this happened. I went to Toronto after dark, and when that came up, I screamed. It's one of those moments that I've experienced at a screening. And a lot of people have films that they went to screens and they went, you know what? This was that memorable screening. For me, Train to Busan was that memorable screening, because you know what? There has not been a film like this in the infection genre, but really for a film like this, where you're dealing with so many amazing characters and you're getting to know them under stress, under duress, and then you're blending in the horror, and you're blending in the action, you're blending in the effects, and you're blending in again, fuel, rage-filled monsters, because they are monsters in this. This isn't like 28 Days Later. This is a different breed of ragers that are going.
Oh, yeah.
But the film itself, for me, if I had not gone to that screening, I'm not sure I would have been as immersed in film festivals as I was. And it really shaped the way for the next 5 years that I really went as a journalist, as a professional traveling. That's a story for another time. But Train to Busan, it's absolutely phenomenal. If you have never seen it, and who cares about the subtitles, just enjoy the ride that is Train to Busan.
Yes. No, I could not agree more. I actually discussed this film 2 weeks ago on a podcast on movies that make you cry. And I brought up Train to Busan and Odd Thomas. And when I was talking about Odd Thomas, I actually started crying. But Train to Busan, I have notes like give Sue Ann Kim an Oscar, like
Yes.
that little girl.
Oh,
I mean,
so
the
good.
tears streaming down. See, my thing, like when she's crying and it's like she's with the pregnant wife,
Right.
and it's like those are the two final girls, and yet it's like they've lost everything except
Yes.
each other, and she's just got tears down her face. Plus, I love the intelligence about the socioeconomic aspects of all the people on the train,
Right.
and how they like shun. It's like, no, you need to go. It's like, we don't want
Right.
you in this section. And it's like the homeless man who they think is the one who's
Yes.
like, you know, that people are think is one. It's like, well, you brought this. It's like, no, he didn't. He's actually trying to save you guys. And then the antagonist is actually worse than the monsters. It's like,
and Kim Saka, I believe is the way you pronounce his name. And that's one of the things I love about this film is we see what the father could be and how his character arc in a less than 2-hour film changes so drastically. But nothing beats the sisters at the end when she, even makes me kind of emotional right now when she opens that door and she just goes to work. But every death is punctuated. There's no death that is a waste of a death. When Don Lee gets bitten and he's saving everyone by holding everyone back, and the pregnant wife, oh God.
It's a beautiful, beautiful
God.
film. And it takes
humanity.
Yeah, seriously, it takes such skill to have so many characters have like honestly full arcs in their stories in that short amount of time. I mean, and to see the growth that the father has with his daughter, who's like, it's like, oh yeah, I got you this. And then she pulls it out. It's like, great, because this is what you got me the same thing last year. It's like,
exactly.
Oh, and it's like just to have him. Yeah, it's honestly, no, it is a beautiful, 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 beautiful film.
And even over the phone when he's talking to his mother and she's turning and there's no nothing about it. And all hope is lost. Everything is gone because the world outside is as destroyed as the world inside that train. So it's just wonderful. So that is for me, my 5th film with Train to Busan.
Tip the hat to you, sir. No, I mean, see, that's the thing. I think we talked about this a little bit. It's like, you know, the movies that influence us and stuff, like these are films that just as a child, like really influenced me into horror and like made me venture into this, even though none of my friends really wanted to watch scary movies. It's like, I just liked all the different aspects of it. Like the haunted house, the creepy stranger, you know, the serial killer with the different masks and all that stuff. And then it's like for Train to Busan, this is one of those films. It's like where later on you just see how horror has changed and like going on to like this such different things about society and the practical effects, the special effects, you know, all and getting you know, going into the different levels of like Asian horror, French horror, all these different things that wasn't a part of my life growing up until I got older. And those are the ones that it's like, these are ones that have become some of my favorite then. So yeah, it's a different, you know, different fan, but yeah, I love that we ended it on Train to Busan. Like that's a beautiful film. Sorry, Jeremy, what do you think about that? I know we've just been rambling on.
I mean, I agree. I mean, it's I don't. There's not much I can say that you guys haven't said already. But you know, I'm not. Again, not much for subtitled movies. I did get through that one. I did enjoy it. It was good choice, Jay.
Thank you.
You gotta teach me how you do these backgrounds because you.
Oh, that's simple. You got it. So you go up to the little corner with the 3 dots, click on choose virtual background, and then you upload the picture and you do the picture.
Okay, so you're just saving the picture.
I'm saving the picture. Okay. Yes.
All right.
Yes. In fact, I'll go back to my normal one right now.
I thought there was something a little more to it than that, maybe. But.
No, I'm not. Thank you for the credit. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, anything else you guys want to?
You know what? Maybe that's for the next episode. films that either surprised us or films that we saw much later on in life.
Yeah, but there's not a whole lot of them that I saw much later in life because I always, if I wasn't allowed to see it, I just snuck and saw it. I always figured out a way.
Bad kid.
I figured out a way. I would always circumvent the system or something.
Well, that's the time we grew up in. I remember watching a mixture of horror and porn when my mom and my dad were away and there was kids over. I mean, I walked through with Evil Dead. I walked kids home and I think the vines were coming for me out of the woods. So, we had our chances to see it. We did. Oz.
We sure did.
Speaking
We're
of
old men.
horror and porn, as I said earlier, when I was trying to ask a parent about, what they would say are films that influenced me in horror, my mom was like, what about that Red Shoe Diaries? I'm like, Mom, that was porn. That is not horror. And obviously, if you remember that, if you never watched
on
TV,
Showtime.
I mean,
or was it Skinemax?
What is it? Silk Stockings. USA Silk Stockings.
USA,
God.
Yes.
Silk Stockings.
Yes. But no matter what, next episode I would assume we'll be back to doing a review.
Anybody out there, drop a comment if there's a film or theme that you want to, or a question you want us to answer or something like that. Drop us a comment and you might just hear it on the show.
Yes, please do. And Oz, if you don't mind, put the IMDb links to all the films so people know where to find them.
Yeah, I will do that. I will put that in the show notes.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
All right. Well, that's it for us tonight. We'll see you next time. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. Just be a good human being.
see you later, creeps.
Be a creep, but don't be too much of a creep.
Be a creep, but not creepy.
There you go. Be a creep, not creepy. I like that.